Welcome everybody to a quick asynchronous video. Unlike some of the ones we've done before, today our focus isn't going to be a PowerPoint or specifically, going through a few specific events or things that you need to know. Today my focus is to take a brief moment to not only recap Unit 1 and 2, but get you excited and ready to see what's out there in Unit 3. So if you recall, here in Contemporary World Issues, when we started off in class in October, our topic was 9/11. We focused in on 9/11, this catastrophic event that had such a massive impact on not only here in America, but around the world. I asked you to take the question or the word perspective. And we unfolded and we looked into different perspectives that 9/11 provided. We saw both perspectives of those of our allied nations and of those that are non-allied nations. We looked into perspectives of people here in America, both in New York and even maybe someone just young, far away. We saw how one event impacted so many different people and regions of the world. But then we also started to learn that a lot of the background of 9/11, the event itself, the beginning stages of that event took place years prior, when other issues about different nations, ideologies, and kind of their own framework of government clashed, and they didn't kind of come on the same page. That essentially, over time, the buildup itself would lead to 9/11. So I say that to help you understand. We started with the event, a massive issue that occurred, and then we're starting to dive backwards. So Unit 1, we talked about 9/11, then we started just looking at, overall, what are issues here in the world that we see? Issues such as war, which is an easy one to note as an issue. Other issues such as pollution, different, education problems. And we started seeing what are some of the issues that we see around the world. And then we focused in Unit 2, we brought it back home. Unit 2, before we start thinking of anything, we went back and we started to look, which is also where we kind of are today, what we looked into this sense of what does America believe? What are our founding principles? And then from that, we started seeing not only what do we believe, but how has our Constitution been this framework of government that has withstood the time, withstood the trials that it's been faced. And then we started questioning of, how issues in our own country, instead of turning to a civil war, how have we worked it out? How have we continued to find progress versus separation? And then in Unit 3, we're going to take our knowledge that we've learned in Unit 2, looking into the issues of Unit 3, and we're now going to look into what do other countries in the world, how do they run? Because part of the issues that you are going to discuss, one of the problems is different ideologies. Here in America, with domestic, democracy as being our pinnacle point. Well, how does our country relate to someone who has totally different ideologies? I think that's an important fact. Before we can try to work with a country, we need to first understand what do they stand on? What are their unchangeable? What's their foundation? What do they believe? And then from that, we can start seeing how the foundations and how these things come to play. The best example, which is what we will discuss in Unit 3, is going to be that of the Cold War. When you see Russia and the United States, to a degree, total opposite types of countries, at heads with each other. Why? What was all the steaming issues? And then looking into just the Cold War, look what all came out of the Cold War. When I taught U.S. history, I always used to say Cold War is the umbrella. It wasn't actually a war. It was the umbrella of, I guess you could say, distinction of two major superpowers. And then under the umbrella is the Korean, or all the things in which their foundations clashed on. Korea, Vietnam, the space race. We start to see this build up. So you see, it's easy to question, how the Korean War, couldn't believe that we went into Vietnam. Let's even use that as an example. Why do we go into the Middle East? Well, after we understand where the country comes from, understanding at the same time our side, then how do we start focusing in to help? What are the organizations already out there that are trying to mend the differences with alliances? What are the programs out there to try to mend ways that we can communicate on levels to help and better the world and the people within countries that don't see eye to eye? And then after we look into, if monarchy, communism, socialism, after we look into these types of governments, who is run by these types of governments, we're then going to take a little time and we're going to zone in on two big areas of the world that we see probably some of the most conflict to a degree: Africa and the Middle East. Africa has been a country that we're going to dive into, and over time that this has been a country that has been overruled, especially during European colonization. We know this has been a country that has been overrun by other countries for time after time, bringing in new different ideals that necessarily don't mend with their foundational ideas. So what you see when you start understanding this, we start realizing of how the conflicts in Africa, how these issues have been created. People saying, hey, I'm the leader, and then taking over full advantage, and you're causing these people to reign to power, and while they're pushing down the others, this gap of the rich and the poor is getting larger and larger. We see also genocide. We see disease and famine and poverty happening in Africa. All big issues that are leading to the fact of why we see such conflict in Africa. Middle East, it's a little different. Middle East, we see countries that are, to a degree, ruled by some of the same frameworks that they've had for generations. But other issues are kind of boiling within the area of the Middle East. I hope you're excited. Let's get ready to dive on in. Unit 3 highlights are already up and running. And let's get ready to have a great Unit 3. And best of luck. See you soon.